I was curious, talking with many people. I'm meeting with some parents and stuff today. There's not supposed to be a class today, and I'm not supposed to have meetings on Friday afternoons, but because it's first, it's the beginning of the year, so it's the one afternoon I'm supposedly not to have anything scheduled, right? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm here at my work, and I wanted to talk about, since I'm between conferences, I wanted to talk about the importance of defining framework before engaging in back and forth. And it's something I'm reminding myself of because it's what I didn't do with Jeff Chen, and I ended up going down a wild goose chase, being led along a wild goose chase, not in a trolly fashion. If he's trolling me, he's doing an utterly brilliant job of it, and so much so that he's blurred the lines between trolling and actually being, you know. The point being, I needed to establish right at the beginning. Okay, Jeff. First of all, let's limit the scope of our discussion so that we can nail down some specific points. Are we talking about what ought to be or what is? That kind of a thing, right? So many of our discussions are about how the United States ought to behave when we're engaged in any sort of political discourse. Sometimes that how the United States ought to behave plays out in really team fashions. In fact, usually it does. Hillary is a criminal. There's no way in hell I'm voting for her, and geez, those liberals and their hating of guns, and there's no reason for any of that stuff. But it comprises a large amount of our political argumentation, which is basically assuming we're right about things and then, shaking our fist, our collective fists. So I think that's why I stress that in this video, as a reminder to myself more than anything else, that it's important for me to work on the framework first. Don't play it like a round where, well, if they're not being explicit about it, I'll just see where they go and I'll catch them in framework contradictions and they'll say, well, doesn't this imply this thing? No, because people don't even know. Like Jeff Chen I was preparing for, it's like I was anticipating an invasion army and I got two squirrels in a slingshot coming at me. So all these massive steel walls and stuff seem a little bit ridiculous now. Well, that's what happens when you don't address framework first. Is you don't understand, okay, is this somebody who's going to be capable of rational discussion or not? People who are capable of it can narrow the field of discussion to a single point to be adjudicated, decide that one way or the other, and then move forward from there. That's what rational people can do. Or decide where the breakdown between the two perspectives lies exactly. See, somebody who's what I would deem meta-rational or displaying meta-rationality in a given moment. Nobody is meta-rational, right? They display meta-rationality about some but not all positions, affirmable positions. So I think somebody displaying meta-rationality might still disagree with another person displaying meta-rationality concurrently, but what they won't do is continue to debate it out. They'll parse it down to exactly where the point of disagreement is. Oh, I see. This isn't we can't reduce this issue any further. It's a fundamental difference in valuing between I don't know, privacy rights or privacy expectations and freedom of information. That there's reasonable expectation of privacy is afforded by property rights, for example, is something that has to be respected. At the same time, I fundamentally believe to be true that when individuals keep information from others, they are doing what benefits them to the direct denial of information to every other human being on the planet. That's a high burden to meet. Whatever your information is, it's so secret. It doesn't really matter. It's extremely selfish to think that I will keep it to myself, benefit from myself, and nobody else will benefit from this information. Learn from it, know anything about me. I won't have to reveal anything true or blah, blah, blah. Well, one can imagine those two values coming into conflict, right? I would err on the side of property rights most of the time, but I could imagine certain circumstances where I'd say, no, that information really needs to be public, yada, yada. I can see another meta rationalist disagreeing on some specifics down there in the specific level. But see, that's what I think displaying meta rationalism means, is understanding where the framework breaks lie, how they lie different for the two parties, and reconciling that by figuring out whether it's something that can be reconciled or not. Some things can, some things can't, For me, I'm willing to tentatively concede and change my perspective on most things if you give me a convincing enough argument. Most anything, really. What causes, I think, people sometimes to not believe that is they don't see me change my mind very often. I don't hear that many compelling arguments, but I do change my mind periodically. In fact, it was Metasoap who got me to realize that my old Kerf model, which understood any as a disruptive vector by nature, was flawed, and it didn't apply to ENFP or INFP, and so I scrapped it. What else are you gonna do? It wasn't the happiest moment when I realized, duh, Eric, you're an idiot, but I was happy enough to be informed of that fact so that I didn't persist in the wrongness any further. So framework is important. If I had established the framework right off the bat with Jeff and said, okay, Jeff, what are we arguing about here? And make him, not give him anything to respond to at all. Just ask some questions about what are we arguing about here? What do you think the point in dispute between us is? Let's narrow it narrower. Come on, Jeff, you can do it. Like that kind of a thing. Get him to narrow it to, is the point in dispute whether or not the United States should have policies related to Taiwan and China? Or, it's like, if you get him to actually narrow down what the question is that he thinks he's disputing, then you have some chance to make some progress, perhaps in making him realize that he doesn't know what he's disputing. A lot of times people don't, right? A lot of times people will be looking to determine if the other person is positioning themselves in opposition or in alliance with a given set of positions. But there are plenty of circumstances in which individuals won't be thus positioned. Certainly I won't. I do tend to find plenty of common ground with rights-driven ideas in general, but that doesn't mean that if you don't like libertarians, you're going to disagree with me about any given particular point, right? Because it depends. It depends entirely on the point and how it plays out. It depends how it's framed. If you want to say, well, we should provide health care for everybody, and you frame it right, it boils down to, well, who should? What do you mean by we? Well, the government. So you mean the taxpayers should. Okay. So should we tax people more money to pay for this, or use existing monies? Okay. You have to walk them through a whole chain of things before you begin to realize, okay, this is a lot more complicated than the government should give everybody free healthcare, which is how a lot of people think about it. Like well, it's just the government should just do it because that's what the government does. No, it doesn't work like that. I mean, we're all individuals with the ability to make free choices, and government protocols tend to limit those abilities and or force choices upon us, mandate things, as the insurance Obamacare does. And you may or may not think that matters, but the idea that you could be taxed for inaction is, I mean, you're being taxed for being alive. A being alive tax. That's not a tax in any meaningful sense, right? It's just an excuse to steal from you. Now, if it is a punishment, if it's a fine, well, then it's unconstitutional. So, as a consequence, I don't have health insurance, and I'm certainly not going to pay any tax penalty. And if they want to try to bust me on that, then I'll go straight to court. Equal protection under the law. Not all states have the same application of Affordable Care Act. It's a federal program. It has to apply to everybody equally. Fuck you, you're not taking my money. And I'll take it all to the Supreme Court if I need to, right? Of course I will. I'd be thrilled to. That'd be great. I would relish every opportunity to shake up the comfort of those who work in the justice system. A very comfortable bunch, a very inappropriately comfortable bunch. Judges so comfortable, so dignified and sure of themselves. They are engaged in some wicked, wicked business. Most of them, right? Most of them are engaged in enforcing bad laws. Right? Laws that violate the Constitution, laws that violate their own understandings of what rule of law is purposed to do and how it looks. So, anyway, this is one of the reasons why framework is so important. When you go into a court of law, they have control of all those framework things, right? They say, listen, this is about the law. We are here to adjudicate the law. If you want to bring in issues of justice, you've got to find elements of the law, previous case law precedents, stuff like that, that references issues of justice, and utilize that. You've got to win under their framework. You don't get to bring your framework in unless you sneak it in, like I said, right? And you can. There's plenty of stuff out there. I mean, it's a great framework to be operating in if you're right, and it doesn't cost you anything to fight it because you're doing it yourself, and you like it, and you're extremely good at it. And then the justice system's great. It's great because there's plenty of leverage points, right? There's certain points where they have to listen to you. Certain other points where they have to answer your questions. I mean, heaven? The enemy has to sit there and listen to you lambast them. The enemy has to sit there and listen to you ask them questions, and then the enemy has to answer your questions. I mean, I want Jeff Chin on the witness stand, right? Well, Jeff, is it or is it not okay to aggress upon another country? Simple question. He says, America is civil war. And the judge goes, answer the question, Mr. Chen. Yes, it's wrong. So you were being a stubborn child, weren't you, Jeff? Yes, I was. It's like, how great is that? That's the great thing that the courts afford, but they do force you to play under their framework. You should, in my opinion, not you should, but one should, I should, I guess, remember how framing any exchange that has any significance to it will redefine the whole experience for the other person as well as yourself. It will define the whole experience, not redefine it, it will define it. It determines what it is, right? So now we're talking about it through this parameter instead of the other. When Candace and I ever have any sort of conflict, it's usually because one of us is feeling a little hurt or something. But, I've got it framed out so that Candace doesn't have any solid ground from which to push. So I don't get any push. And I don't really give any push either, I was trying to push, but she tried to give me a little push not that long ago, and I sent kind of a medium harsh, medium nice, medium snarky, medium not snarky. It kind of went back and forth. Message to her about a request she had made, and after I sent it, I realized it was her birthday. I was like, oh shit, is it your birthday today? My bad, dude. Bad timing. And then I haven't checked my Facebook messages since because I don't want to see what she said. I don't want to get my chops busted. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can bail here. I don't know if any parents are coming in anymore or not. So, thanks for watching Talk with Things, people. I hope you enjoyed this talk about the issue of... What was it about? The importance of establishing the framework of the thing in dispute before you get too deep into it, so you don't get dragged down a wild goose chase, like I did.